The elite status of millionaire. Bathing in caviar and washing your designer shoes in champagne while you shop for yet another Lambo. But how do we get there? Invent the next NFT craze, win the lottery, hope you had some rich auntie who loved you so much that she left you her entire fortune? Nah. The odds are too small for those. These 10 ways I'm sharing with you are reliable, proven ways to build your wealth, stay focused, and become a millionaire. I have a couple of bonus tips also, so stick around to the end for those. Number one, always be learning. Whether that's watching tons of YouTube videos from people who actually know what they're talking about, reading books from proven authors on like the top 20 list of personal finance and investing books, all the things. Just find the source of learning that works for you and go for it. Number two, income. And this one might seem obvious, but it's something that's necessary to not just let it remain constant, but to keep working on it and work on increasing it. Now, until the last few years, for me personally, this whole concept just felt like, yeah, of course I want more money. Of course I want more income. I have no idea how to do that. And it felt like this impassable chasm, and I didn't have the bridge. Well, as it turns out, if you learn more things about how business works, if you learn more about how your industry and your company work, then there's pretty direct paths for you to increase your income. You just have to be aware of them. So how do I understand our business and how do I make sure that they make more money so that I can have some of that? Number three, invest. This is probably the single most important step to make things easier for you. And for me, what I mean by investing is typically to start investing in the stock market. Now that could seem also super vague and super risky if you're new to this. First off, start with tax advantage accounts and get your employer match from something like a 401k. Tax advantage accounts just mean that you don't pay as much tax on that money as you would if you invested it in a taxable brokerage account. So you may as well take the savings, right? After you've gotten an employer match from something like a 401k, if you have that available to you at work, then max out your own accounts. Namely, a Roth IRA is probably the best option for most people, but I'm not an investment advisor, so do what makes sense for you. If you already have or are open to using an HSA plan for your insurance, that can actually be an incredible savings vehicle because there's a triple tax advantage there. Then after that, go back and max out your 401k. If you still have income after all those different things, then go ahead and invest in a taxable brokerage account. Remember, on average, people picking stocks, whether they are you, a professional investor, anybody like that, get worse returns than buying and holding an index fund. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it's the truth. Number four, budget. But if you can't handle that, or if you've done it before but you don't really love it, I would say at least track your spending on things that are variable. The overall theme here, and the reason why you would track this stuff, the reason why we budget is so that we can find how much money we can then deploy to grow. If we're spending everything we make, there's no way we're going to become a millionaire because we're not gaining any assets. We're not buying any investments. We're not saving this money. We're not doing anything with it, but giving it to retailers and other people, making them rich. So stop making them rich and pay attention to what your money's doing so you can become the one who's the millionaire. Number five is buy less of the big four. What I mean by the big four are these four major kind of categories where we spend a lot of money. Number one, house. Number two, car. Number three, food. And number four is technology. These are often the things that we take for granted because we just expect to spend as much as we can possibly afford on them because we think that that will directly improve our quality of life. Like, why wouldn't I go buy a Ford Lightning if I can afford it? Why would I buy a Ford Maverick? That's so silly. Or if you want to go ahead and become a millionaire and free up capital to then deploy to build your wealth, to build your assets, think twice about this. I don't care if you're a big baller and you make $245K per year plus a bonus that pushes you over 300. For one thing, car, food, and tech can all be fairly expensive, and so you're spending money on that. But those three things also depreciate incredibly fast. Hopefully your house isn't depreciating. Hopefully over time it's maintaining its value or even growing. But the other three, they just plummet. A millionaire buys things that appreciate, not things that depreciate. Number six, debt. And the big one here is to avoid high interest debt. Anything these days over 5% interest is high. That's wildly high. And what that means is that you are probably bleeding out money faster than you can make it in most any other way. Credit cards are probably the biggest factor here because they're the most commonly used and they have incredibly high interest rates. Number seven is an emergency fund. All this is your money parachute in case the plane crashes, in case life hits, in case you get sick. Whatever the catastrophe is, God forbid, it could happen. And for all of us, it's bound to happen. No one's going to have a completely perfect, problem-free life, and that's just a reality. So we don't need to be depressed by that. We just need to be a little bit prepared and be ready for it. A lot of the common wisdom is to have 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved in cash in a bank account ready to go. I don't know that you have to have it necessarily in cash in a bank account because I just made a video recently about how my emergency fund is all invested. But what you need to have is easily accessible money. You don't want to have to rely on credit cards. You don't want to have to rely on a HELOC or something like that. Instead, have some kind of liquid asset, be that cash or investments or something that you can go ahead and deploy when you need to. Yes, a credit card could totally get you through for a few weeks or even a month whenever that next payment is due, but you have to be able to then pay that thing off or else you get into more trouble. Number 8 is tax know-how. Now, we don't all have to be total experts on this. You don't have to go be a CPA, but especially if you're doing well on the income side, it's great to know the basics of how taxes work. Write-offs, deductions, tax-advantaged investing accounts, they're all very nice. So is a CPA, so that's another option because they will know their way around tax codes, but it's good for you to know that on the front end so that you can have a good conversation with them and so that you can just do the right thing before you ever have to meet with them. Number 9 is get some robots. And I don't mean any kind of creepy automatron by like Boston Dynamics or future plans from Tesla or something like that. What I mean is automate your contributions and transfers. This is the best way to make sure you keep with your plan, you don't get distracted or break any good habits of saving, investing, and paying off debt. This is something that is so simple that it feels like it wouldn't be worth the squeeze. If you're fired up right now watching this video, you're making plans, I'm gonna raise my income, I'm gonna invest, I'm doing all these things, you're in the right frame of mind for now. But there's gonna be a time when you're not that into it or when you don't feel like it. You know what? I feel like spending some money now. I don't want to save it or invest it. What this does is it pre-transfers all that money into the right places to do the higher level thinking for you. Number 10 is stay in your lane. Comparison is the thief of joy. So if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses across the street who just bought that new Range Rover, you're going to be less excited about your own plan and your own progress. The hack here is to ignore other people, put your blinders on, and track your own progress. Don't lament the distance that you have yet to go in front of you. Think about what all you've done so far to get to this point. Think about all those good decisions you've made to get a better job, to start saving and investing. You've opened that account. You watched this video from some guy who needs to shave his beard and it's really crazy. And you've done all these good things to get to this point. For me, it would be more important to know that we went from $0 to $100,000 saved and invested than it would be to worry about the fact that we're still $900,000 away from $1 million or something like that. Focus on the progress and the process, and the destination will take care of itself. The 2 bonus tips that I think still belong, but it doesn't sound as good in the title as top 10 ways. Number 11, track your net worth. This is the single most important financial number for you to track in your life, period, bar none. Because that one number tells you between the amount of assets you have and the amount of debt you have, what kind of progress you're making. If that number is going down, what that's saying is you're not buying good assets or you're not buying any, and instead you're taking on more and more debt. This is a financial emergency. And the opposite is true too. If your net worth number is constantly rising, what that's telling me is you're probably paying off debt, you're probably buying assets that are appreciating in value, you're investing and saving more and more, all the good things are happening. So that one number over time tells you a great story. And number 12, grit. If you haven't read Angela Duckworth's book, I understand because it's a little bit dry, but it's also a pretty good book. And what she talks about in the book that's also titled Grit is that the most important factor in our success isn't our natural talent. It's not the connections we have with other people. It's not luck. It's your own determination to make things happen. So whenever we're on our path to being millionaires, don't stop. This is an ultra marathon. It's not a sprint. Don't lose your patience. Don't lose your focus. And as long as you keep doing that, you'll get there. Hey, for fun, I like to have a secret comment section, and today the secret comment word is bags. If you enjoyed the video or learned something new about growing your net worth, about becoming a millionaire, then go ahead and leave me a comment and mention something about the bag, growing the bag, saving the bag, protecting the bag, and I'll keep an eye out for these because they are my favorite comments by far. And on this topic of being a millionaire, I have another video coming out really soon that's all about what it actually means to be a millionaire, because it's interesting that we define that in different ways. Depending on who you're talking to, that can mean different things. So between that video and this video, you should have some good information on how to become a millionaire and what it actually means to be a millionaire.